Welcome to Kenya Lens Media, where we bring you news updates as they break. And kindly, if you are new here, consider subscribing. Now, a political storm is building over President William Ruto's planned visit to Tanzania. A Kenyan civil group is now raising serious concerns about the timing and implication of that trip. A coalition operating under the banner Linda Mwananchi that is led by the Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna has strongly criticized President William Ruto's expected visit to Tanzania, where he is scheduled to address the Tanzanian parliament, warning that the move risks legitimizing a contested electoral process and also undermining democratic values in the region. The statement released in Nairobi on May 4th comes at a time when scrutiny over governance and also electoral integrity in East Africa is intensifying. Linda Mwananchi says the planned visit follows what it describes as a deeply troubling development in Tanzania, particularly surrounding the country's most recent general election. According to the group, the visit, while framed as part of the ongoing diplomatic engagement between Kenya and Tanzania, carries broader political meaning. They argue that the Kenyan presidency represents not just executive authority, but also the sovereignty and also democratic identity of the Kenyan people. As such, they say any high-level engagement must reflect those principles, and the group points to reports from international observers and also human rights organizations that raised concerns over the conduct of Tanzania's election. These reports highlight allegations of violence, suppression of opposition voices, and restrictions on the political participation. Linda Mwananchi notes that Tanzania had been expected to hold elections in October of the previous year. However, they claim the process fell short of democratic standards, citing that what they describe as a widespread irregularities. Among the issues raised are reports of arrests, enforced disappearances, and also restrictions targeting opposition figures. The group specifically references the treatment of opposition leadership, including the banning of the main opposition party, and that is Chadema, from participating in the election process. They also cite the detention of opposition leader Tundu Lissu, who was faced treason charges, and Linda Mwananchi describes these charges as politically motivated and expresses concern over delays in legal proceedings that have kept him in custody. The group further draws attention to findings by the African Union Election Observer Mission, and according to their statement, the mission concluded that the election did not meet established democratic standards. They cite concerns over ballot integrity, limited access to information due to internet disruptions, and an environment that was not conducive to free and fair participation. Additional concerns are drawn from statements by the United Nations officials and also human rights experts. They include reports of extrajudicial killings, arbitrary detentions, and also the use of force against civilians. The United Nations has called for investigations into these allegations and urged the authorities to uphold fundamental rights. Regional observers under the Southern African Development Community also raised concerns. They noted low voter turnout and also described the political environment as uneven, particularly due to the exclusion of key oppositional candidates. Diplomatic missions from the several Western countries also weighed in, highlighting credible reports of electoral violence and also calling for transparency and accountability. Against this backdrop, Linda Mwananchi argues that President Ruto's planned address to the Tanzanian parliament may be interpreted as an endorsement of the current political situation in the country. They caution that such a move could signal a departure from Kenya's long-standing position on democratic governance and also regional accountability. The group says the symbolism of Kenyan president addressing a foreign parliament, especially under these circumstances, cannot be overlooked. They emphasize that Kenya has historically positioned itself as a defender of democratic principles within the East African region. Linda Mwananchi also raises concerns about past incidents involving Kenyan activists in Tanzania. They call that some activists were reportedly mistreated while in Tanzania, and the issue was discussed in Tanzanian parliament in a manner that drew criticism from Kenyan observers. This, they say, adds another layer of sensitivity to the planned address. Beyond regional diplomacy, the group questions the domestic implication of the visit. They asked what tangible benefits the engagement will bring to Kenyans at a time when the country faces pressing internal challenges. Among the issues highlighted are unemployment, the rising cost of living, and also concerns over governance and public trust. The group argues that leadership priorities should reflect the immediate needs of citizens. They also stress the importance of accountability and transparency in decision-making at the highest levels of the government. And in their statement, Linda Mwananchi draws a distinction between the people of Tanzania and its leadership. They express solidarity with the Tanzanian citizens, acknowledging what they describe as documented hardships linked to political developments in the country. At the same time, they reaffirm the broader vision of the East African community, and this vision includes regional integration, economic cooperation, and also a shared prosperity among member states. The group warns that actions perceived as endorsing disputed political processes could undermine these goals. They say regional cooperation must be grounded in mutual respect for democratic norms and also the rule of law, and the timing of the visit also comes into focus. Kenya is expected to hold its own general election in just over a year, and Linda Mwananchi suggests that regional political alignments and also engagements may carry implications for for how democratic processes are perceived domestically. They caution against any signals that could be interpreted as tolerant for electoral malpractices. At the same time, the group emphasizes that Kenya's political landscape remains distinct, and they express confidence that the will of the Kenyan people will prevail in future elections. The statement concludes with a firm position that Linda Mwananchi says it does not support the planned address and seeks to distance the Kenyan public from the visit. They frame their position as one rooted in the defense of democratic values and regional accountability. And this statement is signed by a number of Kenyan political leaders, including governors, senators, and also members of parliament. The involvement signals that the concerns raised are not limited to civil society, but extend into sections of the political leadership. As preparations of the visit continue, attention is likely to remain on both the diplomatic and political implications, and the situation highlights the delicate balance between maintaining regional relations and also upholding democratic principles. For Kenya, the decision carries weight not only in terms of foreign policy, but also in how it positions itself within the East African community and the broader international arena. The response from the government officials has yet to be formally outlined. However, the debate sparked by the statement underscores the complexity of regional diplomacy in a politically sensitive environment. In a region where democracy and diplomacy often intersect, every move carries meaning and every silence speaks just as loudly. That is all from Kenya Lens Media, and kindly if you are new here, consider subscribing, liking and sharing our content as a way of motivating us and also helping us grow this platform. Hit the notification bell so that you can be receiving notifications each and every time we bring you a new content.